You're listening to the sweet sounds of the After Movie Diner. Support us at patreon.com/After Movie Diner. Or I'll punch you in the teats. Rate and review us on iTunes, Earthling. And now, here's your host, John Cross.
Hello and welcome to the After Movie Diner with our regular and wonderful co-host, Jim Wallace. There he is. There he is, being the Wallace-ness of the Jimness that he possibly can be.
I'm an anarchist. I'm a podcast anarchist, mate. I don't care about niceties. I don't care about introductions.
No. Well, we're past that, mate. We're past 325 episodes in. I think we're past introductions at that point.
Yeah. People in sheds, mate, they don't need introductions. They just want to get to the meat. They get to the heart of the matter.
They want to get to the nub.
Shed dwellers are perpetually hungry for podcast content.
We are looking for an entirely shed-based audience, if that's at all possible.
Yeah, of course, mate. What else are you going to do? I mean, I'll tell you this, right? In a pandemic, living in a one-room apartment with my wife, I could use a shed. She could use a shed. We could both use sheds at this point. You know what I mean?
Well, no, I didn't require a shed-based co-host. I just require a shed-based listener.
I'm just saying the attractions of going out to a shed, sitting in it and listening, to people talk bollocks is extremely attractive to me.
Well, yeah, maybe with a tin mug of tea that you just occasionally roll a solitary tear into. Yeah,
actually, I thought you were going to say occasionally roll like a sad-looking cigarette, which again that would fit with the shed tin mug of tea.
Yeah, diluting the disappointment tea of 20. Hang on.
Seizing the day, man.
Hang on. Get this. Diluting the disappointment 2020 tea with the teardrop of mediocrity. I'm just saying, let's workshop it. Yeah.
It's nearly there. There's something there, but I feel like by the time you've gotten to the end of it, everybody's forgotten how it started.
Yeah, well, indeed. So this week, there's something exciting, and it's going to be introduced to everyone, you included, Jim, by the mode of a little song I just wrote.
Okay.
Because I feel like every time I've tried to improv this in the past, it's gone horribly wrong, and that's been part of the joke. But I felt like this time around,
you're tired of jokes, mate. You're tired of being funny.
Was I ever really? But I thought I'd actually write a proper jingle to introduce this gentleman that we both know and love, who has sent us something. So,
great. Okay.
This is the song.
Oh, you're going to sing it live?
Yeah, I'm going to sing it live, yeah.
Okay, go. Oh, okay.
When the battle is fought, when the war is won, when the end is near and another day is done, when you're working in pajamas and it's anything but fun, and you really want some emails because it's a mildly average podcast that you run, and nobody ever writes you, but you can always count on one. Andy Lunn.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. You're right. I've just remembered that all your previous attempts at
Andy Lunn
always ended just terribly.
Just
really awful.
Really badly. Almost bad. Yeah, almost upsetting.
I feel like we should almost have a minute's silence in mourning. Do you know what I mean? For your attempts. But that was very good. You could have used more of a tune.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you record an actual song version of that, I feel like, because the mailbag jingle was always one of the highlights of the diner, I felt.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do either of those things. I have two emails from Monsignor Lunn that have come in during our Pleasencing series, and I'd completely...
Has he bought a shed?
He hasn't bought a shed. Sad. Well, I don't know. Maybe he does have a shed. Anyway, we'll have to ask him. Andy Lunn, we're asking you right now, do you have a shed and can you listen to the podcast in it? Because we demand shared domination. Podcast shared domination. But no, he sent us an episode. He sent us an episode. He sent us an email after our first Pleasencing episode, and I completely forgot to read it. Then he sent us another one recently, and I was like, great, I'll just read both of them on the last Pleasencing episode, so I can just get it in under the wire. Anyway. Andy Lunn writes, first of all, he said, hello there. I hope you don't mind me dropping you a line outside of the Spader season. But if anyone amuses me more
clearly he doesn't know us very well.
Yeah, clearly he doesn't. We can demand all we like. We would love it. We would crave it. We love hearing you dropping us a line, Andy. Do it more often. And maybe I'll write a second verse to that, terrible song that I just...
No, it was good. I just felt like it needed music. It needed grounding. It needed drive.
What I needed was to run it past someone before I just blurted it out live for all to hear. Anyway, but if anyone amuses me more than Jimmy S, it's probably Donald Pleasence. From his early roles in what I guess you'd call serious movies like A Tale of Two Cities and Look Back in Anger, through crowd pleasers like The Great Escape and You Only Live Twice.
I thought he was in Look Back in Anger. Sorry.
Yeah, he's the little busybody. Right? No, he's the little busybody guy who runs the market stall or something. Isn't he?
Oh yeah.
Doesn't he come along and he's all a bit busybody-ish, and Burton tells him to get knotted.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I think so. Through crowd pleasers like The Great Escape and You Only Live Twice, and finally to the delightfully odd stuff which I adore, like Wake and Fright, Cul-de-sac, and Phenomena, amongst many others. He was, as I've absolutely no need to tell you, a brilliant actor. 2 possibly odd facts about Pleasence from my own life. Apparently, my wife's granddad was in the same squadron as Pleasence in World War II.
That is an excellent fact. I would be busting that out at every available opportunity if I see him every time I go to the pub.
Yeah.
With no problem to go, my wife's grandfather was in the same RAF squadron as Donald Pleasence.
Yeah, pipe please, Jeff. No, that's exactly how you would just rock up to the bar, both hands down on the bar, maybe cough into a slightly pathetic handkerchief, and then announce to the whole pub, my wife's granddad was in the same squadron as Pleasence.
Or you know what I would do? I would bust it out as a boredom fighting subject changer. You know what I mean? Like when someone's being really boring in a pub, like you wait, a pause. Yeah. There's like a small pause. You go, my wife's granddad was in the same squadron as Donald Pleasence in World War II, and then you're off to the races.
You're off.
There's so many things to talk about that you've just laid out there.
So many tangents.
Everyone will be very grateful that you're not talking about, I don't know, whatever you were
talking about before.
The subject changing so badly.
Probably
I might even start lying and saying it myself. Or our podcast, one of our podcast's most loyal listeners' wife's grandfather. Just start there.
That's a bit convoluted.
But I don't mind it. It's fine. Lots to talk about. Just adding more things to talk about. You're in a podcast.
Yeah.
You have listeners.
You have a listener.
You have a listener.
That listener has a wife, and they listen to your show. Yeah. There's so many things.
You know what I mean? It's all there.
It writes itself.
I've interrupted. Carry on with the letter.
The second possibly odd fact about Pleasence from Andy Lunn's own life was that his dad used to cut out obituaries of classic actors from the paper and give them to him. The Donald Pleasence one is the last one.
His dad used to give him obituaries. Was it like how to deal with mortality? Do you know, like we all die one day, son. Look.
I don't know. I'm not Andy Lunn, and I'm not his dad. I don't know why he did it. He just did. He used to cut out obituaries of classic actors from the paper and give them to me. The Donald Pleasence one is the last one I received before his own untimely death in 1995. So way to completely stomp all over a very poignant and emotionally charged memory of Andy Lunn's. Andy, we are very sorry for the passing of your father, and I'm sorry also that Jim Wallace is such a goit.
I think that's. I know. I'm just speculating on the motives for cutting out obituaries. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
But if ever there was proof that you should let me finish my fucking sentence before jumping in
sometimes that can
with
take
your
ages.
+4s.
Sometimes your sentences are so long, they're like the length of a podcast.
I am king of the roll-on
without
sentences.
interruption, mate, it would just be
me.
Bloke talking about a movie to somebody who never says anything.
Yeah, it might just be something that people actually want to listen to.
So you're saying, you're accusing me of being the reason that our listenership is underwater.
Definitely. And it's not underwater. We're doing fine. We're doing fine. I keep telling myself.
You keep water in a shed, and what's that got to do with tit?
No one gets that Fry and Laurie reference except you, me, and John. But that's fine, because John's been listening to the podcast, but then weirdly commenting on it on YouTube. Which leads me to believe he's the only one who listens to the shows on YouTube, which also leads me to want to say, get yourself a smartphone, you mad, out-of-date person. Although,
I don't think we're in a position to be criticising however people want to listen to us.
True.
I mean, if they want to record it onto a cassette tape and then play it in their shed on their old clunky cassette player, let them do it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And John, it's wonderful that you keep commenting on YouTube. Do not stop. We love comments. We love emails. We love likes. We like shares.
Should we if he is commenting and we take the time to read out people's comments, shouldn't we read out his comments?
We would, but if you're going to interrupt every time I'm reading out one email, then the whole podcast is going to last.
Okay, what happens sometimes, right, is we call it conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know those bits when you're not talking, and you hear white noise, and the other person's mouth is moving.
Yeah.
Actually, what they're doing is they're engaging in conversation.
Right. Okay.
That could be. I'm just saying. It's just a thought. Maybe something for 2021.
Right.
Right. That we want to think about bringing into the old podcast.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I see where you're going. But yeah.
You just seem more convinced.
Anyway, to finish up Andy Lund's first email, because don't forget we've also got a second one that you can waft. Waft your dirty stench all over. He finishes off after that very open, poignant, and emotive fact, which I absolutely love, by the way. Andy, and again, I apologize routinely for Jim. He finishes up by saying, I had planned a pleasathon last year to celebrate his centenary. Unfortunately, it never really happened. I must get back on that. There is certainly a lot to choose from. I think I'd like to start with Deathline/Raw Meat. I think I may still have it on VHS somewhere. There was an all-nighter of horror movies and short documentaries on BBC Two in 1992, and Deathline was part of that. It was called The Vault of Horror and was hosted, according to Wikipedia, by Dr. Walpurgis. Anyhow, I taped most of it, and I'm hoping that I still have it somewhere. Dr. Walpurgis.
That's quite fun. I wish I had taped, because one of those things that used to be fun when you're watching an old VHS tape was the old adverts, every now and then, or like a Christmas ad, especially like a Christmas advert from the BBC or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Of 1992 or whatever. There's a little trip back in time. Well, and I think when Alex Cox used to do Movie Drome on BBC Two. I wish I'd recorded some of those. His one for America World in London, I remember really enjoying.
I had a few of those, but I think I unfortunately caught some of the Mark Cousins ones, so it may have melted the tape due to overexposure to pretension and waffle. But yeah, the Movie Drone was excellent. But I've never heard of the Vault of Horror or who Dr. Walpurgis is. Whatever that noise is, either stop that noise or mute your mic.
Sorry, how do I mute? Okay, hang on.
He's literally taking a phone call while we're doing the podcast. I mean, if ever there was another example of just what a goit-faced, dribble-chinned arse monkey that Jim Wallace is, it's him taking this call.
Sorry, the wife's picking up pizza and she wanted to know what slices I want. I had to answer. I was like, get no dinner.
Okay then. It's fine.
Email number 2.
It's fine. It's absolutely fine. He actually rounds out that email with, if he doesn't have it anyway, he might slum it and buy the Blu-ray. All the best, Lun. And then he followed that up with, on November 28th, which I think was the Saturday just gone. So I think this is fairly recent. He finished up with the subject line is Halloween 2. And he says, "Hi, John. I wanted to let you know about a wonderful moment that occurred yesterday." Notice how he just says John, because at this point he's anticipated you being rude and has just written to me directly. So he's not even including you on the emails anymore.
So you're saying if I want to be involved in this, I'm going to have to butt in.
Be nicer. I wanted to let you know about a wonderful moment that occurred yesterday. Following introducing my son, John, to the wonders of Halloween, on Halloween, we then sat down to watch the sequel yesterday. I did wonder if this one might scare him a bit too much, but quite the opposite. He loved it. He was, however, quite disappointed that Donald perished in the fire, and I decided not to immediately reveal that he would in fact be back. Later that afternoon, I showed him the trailer for Halloween 4. As the trailer played out, up popped Loomis, to which John turned to me with great excitement and said, "Dad, Donald survived!" A new Pleasence fan is born. Later that evening, without John, I settled down to watch The Devil's Men, despite your recommendation that no one really need watch it. I'm afraid that I couldn't resist, though. The idea of Cushing exploding was something that I needed to see with my own eyes, no matter how shit the effect would inevitably be. I've seen worse. I've obviously also seen a lot better too. Cushing exploding was worth the wait, though. All the best, Lun. Well, Andy, anytime you feel like commenting, mate, it's you're more than welcome, because we love your emails. Those were two crackers, I thought, Jim.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. They were brilliant.
And to read out your brother's comment, John Wallace's comment on The Devil's Men on the YouTube episode, he said, if 70s Greek films are all about putting Oliver Reed in a helicopter with a bazooka, I may have to begin watching 70s Greek films. This was most excellent entertainment while doing some late night supermarketing both. I don't know what that means. Great work as always.
So late night supermarketing, right? So I guess he's popping out to the supermarket late at night, and then both. That's to you and me. He's talking to both of us.
This was most excellent entertainment while doing some late night supermarketing. Both. Great work as always. Okay. So that was his comment on that, and I think he had one earlier comment. He did. This was on the Race for the Yankees effort episode, and it's just a one sentence comment. And he just said, "I for one am delighted that you chose to over-egg the contextual pudding." So we're pleasing at least three people if we include the shed-based Scottish listener.
Well, that's four, right? Because aren't there two shed-based listeners now?
Oh, yeah.
There's one shed-based listener in Edinburgh, and then we've got a brand new shed-based listener.
On Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that a Twitter chat we had earlier in the week?
I think so, yeah.
It was a lot of fun anyway. Person on Twitter who we had a conversation with earlier in the week, who I can't be bothered to look up, please continue to tweet us. Message us.
If you talk to us, we will talk back.
Yeah, we will. We will talk back.
Send a comment, we'll read it out. Send an email, we'll read it out. Talk to us on Twitter, we'll talk back. We're very friendly.
We are very friendly.
We're not very knowledgeable.
No.
Or interesting, but we are friendly.
And Jim will occasionally be mean about deceased relatives. But apart from that...
What was it mean? I was just speculating. My own dad was very keen on, opening my eyes to the... the concept of mortality barreling towards my naive youth at the rate of knots. Right. But I don't think it was that.
I
was identifying, mate.
I think it was, I imagine, and I'm just going to hypothesize, maybe Andy will write in and expound on it further, but I'm going to hypothesize that if there was a period of time where classic actors that Andy may not have been exposed to naturally through the course of television or whatever, who were passing away, maybe the stars of the 30s or the 40s or something like that his dad was particularly fond of, but he wanted to kind of be like, hey, here's who this guy was. I really liked him. Maybe you could look him up and watch a few of his films. But maybe that's why he was doing it. Because obituaries are good, like, they're good, they're mini biographies, right? So you can just kind of read them and go, oh, he sounds like fun. I'll look up his stuff. Or, she sounded like she was a corking actress. We'll go look up some of her stuff or whatever it is. Like, they're just a good thing.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I can see that.
Also, weird note on Obituaries. I have had Viv Stanchel's obituary from the newspaper that I cut out when I was at King Edward School in Whitley when I was 12 or 13. No, 13 or 14. I think he died in 94. But I've had that obituary cut out of the newspaper and folded in my wallet for like however many years that is now, almost 30 years.
It's still in your wallet now?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of like my good luck charm.
Really?
Well, I don't know why. It's just a reminder that.
I'm saying, like, has it really worked? Well, I mean, sometimes in your life, no doubt, you've had quite a bit of good luck. Other times, less so.
But that's life, isn't it? Anyway, that is
just
life.
Saying, I'm speculating on the. No, anyway, that's like not the point. I'm actually quite impressed that you managed to do that and that it's still intact.
Yeah. Well, I don't move it very often. I've only had about 3 wallets since then. I tend to keep wallets till they fall apart. So it gets folded up, put in a wallet, and then left for like 10 years in one of those pockets in a wallet that you never go into. You know what I mean?
Oh, I get it. That makes sense.
And then it gets transferred.
That's cool, man. That's very cool.
So there's that. So to usher in us, this is just going to be like a semi-musical episode or semi-musical episode. To usher in us talking about tonight's Pleasence movie and the last in our now weirdly 5 episodes of a Pleasencing series.
And why are we doing it? Can we remind everybody why we're doing it?
Why are we doing it? Oh, because
besides the Pleasencing 2.
Because of the Pleasencing 2. Do you know what? Most of the Pleasencing 2 songs are in my top Spotify listens of the year. So I don't know that we have to keep reminding people because clearly people are looking up the Pleasencing 2. No, mate,
listen, speaking as somebody who works in promotion, if something starts to become a hit, you put more money behind
it.
More money.
Jim's the marketing whiz. He knows all about it.
If something starts, striking a chord with the general populace,
I like what you did there. I like what you did there with the musical chord pun. That was excellent. It was excellent. Never do it again, but it was excellent. So recently, on the Twitters, I did decide to ramp up my miscellaneous plumbing fixtures presence just by being more active.
Your Pleasence presence.
On my Pleasence presence, just by being more active on the Twitters. And the Eagle's Nest radio station is really good for independent musicians. They play a lot of great tracks by up-and-coming unsigned artists, and they've played a couple of our tracks in the past and are good supporters of the music. And through them, I decided, because they were putting together this artist showcase playlist on Spotify, of which I was a part of it, and I thought, I'm going to go through this artist playlist, I'm going to listen to these other independent artists, and I'm going to share some love and pay it forward and spread it around and all that good stuff. So I was going through and I found a bunch of great stuff and I was sharing it and da-da-da-da-da. And one of the people that I shared, I kind of got into a back and forth on Twitter with, which was very pleasant. And all my favorites from the bigger playlist I had put into a smaller playlist. And he said, you should add one of your songs to that playlist so that when you're sharing other people's stuff, people also hear one of your songs. May I suggest Follow in Your Father's Footsteps? It's great. And that wasn't even the one that was on the Eagle's Nest radio PlayStation. That was just one of my songs. That's just out there on the Pleasencing 2. I don't even know that he realizes it's about Donald Pleasence. He just really likes the song and thought that I should.
It's a great album, and it's a great opener for that album. And the whole album is just a corker. There's not a duff track on it, mate.
Well, there we go. So the Pleasencing 2 now available on Spotify and Bandcamp. Bandcamp Friday tomorrow. So if you want to pick it up, I get 100% of the fees. 100% of the takings because fees are waived. However, this episode will come out way after that, so pay no attention to that.
The next Friday, the next available Friday, whenever you're listening to this. Well, wherever your shed is on whatever day you're listening.
Yeah, wherever you are.
Friday, that's when you want to buy the Pleasencing 2.
No, because it's not every Friday. It's just the first Friday of every month. And we don't know if they're going to continue it into 2021.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right, then just buy it anyway.
So this may be the last one. But to usher in the last film of the Pleasencing, I have another song that I would like to sing live. It is to the sound of Camelot from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
I saw this on Facebook, and it was very
It is on Facebook, along with some amazing screenshots, because tonight's film was the second time in this run of Pleasencing movies where Don has been shot rather bizarrely with a fisheye lens, so that his bulbous nose really comes into full view of the viewer, of the watcher, and I love that about Don's nose. No disrespect. Anyway, it made me write this song to the tune of Camelot. Here we go. Knights of the Round Table, we're Pleasance wherever we're able. We do nasal screams and act in scenes that are quite unforgivable. It's a Pleasance night in Camelot. He has to whack the hammer lot. I didn't do that very well, but you know what I mean.
No, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Actually, it lives better on the page, but nonetheless, I enjoyed it.
No, it's true. It does live better on the page. It's because I didn't practice either of these ditties. I just thought I would regale people with them.
You thought that your natural charm and talent would win out.
Yeah, it hasn't, though, has it?
It didn't.
It didn't. And the film that we are covering on this particular episode is known as Trial by Combat, Brigada da Morte, Tempi Brutti per Scotland Yard, Giunglamento per Combate, Trial by Combat, A Choice of Weapons, A Dirty Night's Work, spelt with a K.
That's my favourite. That's what I think it should have been called.
In West Germany, it was called Silberschütz, and also it's known as A Choice of Arms as well as A Choice of Weapons.
I think the West German one is the noise Donald Pleasence made when he was putting on his armour.
Yeah, Silberschütz, or the noise that Roger Moore makes when he stands up in later Bond films. Yeah, or when he gets hit in later Bond films, he goes Silberschütz.
No, because I make that noise when I sit down now. I make the Roger Moore being punched in Octopussy.
But yes, it's also known as the Knights of the Unpleasance Table, because he is the villain in this film, ostensibly. But yes, A Dirty Night's Work, which is a wonderful pun on night, maybe a hard day's night as well. I don't know. Anyway, a group of British aristocrats who call themselves Knights of Avalon, which sounds like a makeup department. We are Knights of Avalon. Would you like some rouge? Isn't content with the system of justice and executes judgment themselves. Instead of just killing people that they believe guilty. So instead of just killing the people that they believe are guilty, they give them a chance in a traditional combat. When one day Sir Edward Gifford, played in a cameo by Peter Cushing, witnesses their sessions, they have to remove him too. His son and heir, Sir John Gifford, played by you've never heard of him, David Burney, from America, starts to investigate with help from Ms. Marion Evans, played by a young Barbara Hershey, and Colonel Bertie Cook, played with wonderful aplomb by Sir John Mills from Scotland Yard. They investigate and have a lot of fun, and it becomes a bit of a kind of knockabout romp, even though it's ostensibly about the aristocracy taking the law into their own hands and stabbing villains with huge swords.
Yeah,
that's about it, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Say so. So I suppose my reaction when I was watching the film is I was left with a profound sense of melancholy.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because there was a time in my life, probably, I guess would have been late 90s or early 2000s. I'm trying to think when it would have been. Probably late 90s, early 2000s. When if I'd seen this film, it would have become my favourite film of all time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That period when we were listening to the Small Faces and the Kinks, and we were and Modern Life is Rubbish, and we were mad for all that. You know what I mean?
Sir Henry at Rawlinson End.
Yeah, Cockney villains and very English slang, and Brian Glover in Alien 3, and do you know what I mean? All that kind of all that stuff. And this movie is so delightfully odd and based quite heavily on I don't know. It's just like it was. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting to at all, but it's so odd and slightly deranged, and seemingly does not care that it's being so odd, and not in a like not in a forced way. Not like, oh, isn't this surreal? It's like, we're going to be knockabout. Let's just like dial up the knockabout to 11. And the running gag of like John Mills is like really good with animals. I'm going, well, that's going to. In my naivety, I was like, well, that's going to be a plot point later on. I go, no plot point. It's just a running gag for no reason. John Mills, like other than like fucking up that bloke's office with pigeons, and it's so weird. It's sort of like.
Well, I think the plot point is that when he witnesses them. And we don't know if they kill the dog, but we know that they chase and wrap up the dog with like the red flag or whatever when it gets loose in the banquet hall. Like,
it was a bear.
No, it was a dog.
It was a bear. I'm sure it was a bear.
No, it was a dog. It was a big black dog. It was definitely a dog. It was on all fours.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a bear.
No, because he goes in
the cheese anyway.
Sorry?
How does that give anything away? How does the dog / bear give anything away?
Meaning that he's really good with animals, and it wasn't till he like witnessed their cruelty to the animals that he kind of put two and two together that maybe it was them.
Oh, is that the plot point? That completely.
I'm just saying that's.
But you're expecting like
a tenuous link.
They're going to be in trouble, and there's going to be like a lion or something, and John Mills being like, "It's all right, I'm gonna like." Crocodile Dundee this lion.
Oh my God! Can you imagine if the climax of this movie was like Sir John Mills riding a lion?
No, but that's what I was expecting. And not that I'm saying that how it ended wasn't great, because it was completely mad and also perfect. But it was. I guess I was saying like it was melancholy because I thought I wish I'd seen this when I was like 22 or something. I would have absolutely loved the arse of this movie. It would have been like one of my favorite movies of all time. Pleasence would have become like one of my favorite actors. I would have, I probably would have gotten into Cushing a bit early, even though I loved how Cushing just like the way the movie opens. Like, what a weird like medieval movie we're watching. It looks like it's taking place in a in like a out back of a country house. Doesn't look real at all. And then like Cushing wanders in like halfway through with his dog and his shotgun, go, "What, how everyone?" He go, "What? What is going on?" And they go, "Oh, I guess it is a country house." And wait, what did they just kill that bloke though? Is there an act? Like all the way through the movie, like what is going on now? But it was always something delightful. It was never like cynical or like something just kind of shoehorned in to get the plot moving. It was just like. It's just it's not often that like romps are actually any good, but this was a proper romp, and it was really good. Brian Glover was brilliant in it, and there's not enough movies where Brian Glover gets to be brilliant, and this is one of them.
Well,
right?
Brian Glover was fantastic because what happened with Brian Glover is what you want to happen, right? And that is he's like this, gobshite East End underworld kind of character with like the mad mum with crazy hair and stupid glasses or whatever, who's going to sort of go up against these medieval bad guys along with sort of knockabout happy chappy John Mills and then this American guy and a couple of other people, and he's all bravado and bullshit with like, I'm going to take you all on and blah 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 blah, and you think, oh, he's getting a lance through the neck or something. But no, he takes them all on.
He takes them all on.
Beats the hell out of all of them, and you're like, wait, am I watching Glover in like a slightly natty 70s suit beat up random British character actors dressed as knights? And is this amazing?
Especially in some of it was like all he did was put a ladder over them, and then you could see them in the background going like, "I'm confused by the ladder." And just take the ladder off. It's not complicated. They were confused by the ladder. It was great, and like Barbara Hershey like driving in a Mini at full speed through a garden with Brian Glover in the passenger seat while people like shove lances through the window. It's completely balmy, and yet never anything other than just like really good fun. And
well, but I tell you why, because it never overstepped the tone that it had already set. had it gone fully like on the buses or carry on or whatever, like had they started up the brass band, like, whatever.
None of that. You're right. There was none of that.
You would have been. You would have absolutely hated it. But because what it did perfectly, and also in a very, very English way, which was utterly charming from the get-go, was that it set up its table, and as bizarre as the table was, and as weird as everything on it was, it never moved off the table. Like, it's just like, we've set this up. This is the reality of the. This is the reality of the world that we're in, and let's just play this out. And it'll be a little rompy at times, and it'll be a little odd at times, and it'll be a little serious at times. But it's basically in the same wheelhouse for the majority of the movie. I mean, there's something to say that about 40 minutes in, it's exhausted any like plot that it deems to have, and the sort of second half of it is mostly knockabout. But it's so, like, the knockabout bits are so well done, and so everything that you wanted. Like I said, like having Glover actually triumph was a delight. Like, was just a delight. Yeah. And so, and having Pleasence being like, oh, I guess it's up to me to try and, like, because all of his other people are useless, and like Pleasence having to be the last man standing. Like Pleasence is the villain who looks like a middle-aged 70s accountant. I mean, he doesn't look like aristocracy at all. He looks like the kind of guy who'd be at NatWest Bank, being like, would you like another checkbook, sir? Like, he looks like that guy, right? But dressed up in like shonky Python Holy Grail like armor. But him being like the last defender of this like mad Knights of Avalon thing was also just an absolute delight, because again he wasn't he doesn't have the nobility or the breeding or the standing of someone like a Cushing or a Lee or whatever. He's from up north. He's like a little pudgy northern guy, and that's why we love him. That's no disrespect to anyone in the north. It's just that's why we love him. So him playing, and yes, Sir John Mills makes the comment in the movie where he says, we knew he was scraping the bottom of the barrel when he had to pick you to succeed him. Meaning like there are very few authentic toffs left, and the few toffs that there are really don't want anything to do with you mad bunch of medieval knights. Yeah,
you're right. I wonder if that was deliberate too. Like, I know that because I got the impression that what's his face Pleasance, his character, like, bought the castle, right? He wasn't born there. He talked about, like, because somebody said, oh, this place used to be a dump, and he's like, yeah, you should see what I've done with it. So he like moved in. So there's definitely like this idea of him being a social climber.
Yeah.
And I guess if there's anything going on in the movie, it's that there's this like natural harmony, right? That of like a good toff is like in harmony with the world around him, right? That's what Mills is. Like, all the police, the people who work at the police station, they still like consider him the boss. It's still his office. All the animals flock around him. Do you know what I mean? Everybody just kind of like goes along with what he says. It's like,
well, him letting pigeons into the guy's office.
You know what I mean? And then Pleasance is all like, oh, well, that's me. Like, it's there's a social climbing, upper middle class, like, I'm going to buy a castle, I'm going to be a proper toff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to get back to the good old days.
Oh, like, completely.
There's a certain kind of like curtain twitching Brexit wannabe bullshit thing about Pleasance. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of attitude that's still around today, right? That, like, we need to get back to the good old days kind of a thing. Whereas actually, as you said, like, Cushing's dead, and whatever Mills has got he's clearly a dying breed. But everybody loves him. You know what I mean? For no reason other than he's a toff who, fits into that world. He just like fits into whatever world he's in.
Yeah, he's like the charming, lovable toff who's as comfortable in like a dodgy East End casino with Glover and his mad mum as he is probably swanning around Hampton Court Palace or whatever. And he knows the etiquette in both places. And it's like wherever you put him, he belongs. Right? It's like the toughness is not
and I'm not saying this is right or anything, but like clearly, like the movie's kind of saying that the right to rule is, about something within, right? It's attitude. It's not necessarily what you're born to, and it can't be given. It's just something that you possess, and it allows you, like you're saying, to live and be at home in whatever environment you're in. And Pleasence will never have that, no matter how much he dresses up like a knight and rams a sword through thieves or whatever the people are that are getting.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. The wrap up of their mission, such as it is, comes from the other Scotland Yard guy. So Mills no longer works for Scotland Yard, and yet still has its ear. And
fat vicar from Dad's Army, right?
Yeah, the fat Dad's Army vicar who's now in charge of Scotland Yard, even though every time he shows up he's find that Mills has rearranged his office, let pigeons in, and is sat at his desk drinking his tea, because Mills has no time for him, really. Later on, towards the end of the movie, he sums it up as, bleeding heart liberals are the kind of people who, can't abide the idea of, hundreds of bad guys being killed under the guise of maybe one innocent person becoming collateral damage, essentially. So they would rather the rule of law. Like, aren't they just idiots because they want the rule of law? And the rule of law is there to not protect necessarily the bad guys, to protect that one innocent person who's wrongfully accused. And what their argument is on the other side, the Knights of Avalon, is if we happen to kill a few wrongfully accused people, we'll weigh that against the hundreds of genuinely bad people we've killed. That's their argument, essentially. But you're right. I hadn't thought about this till afterwards. Watching the movie, all the Knights of Avalon guys are middle class, maybe upper middle class at best. They're kind of business class.
Yeah.
They're kind
it's
of
all wannabe stuff, isn't it? None of it's like clearly like, because Cushing, right? Like, I think he's telling his kid, because it's something about like Mills says something about like get to know the values that he held dear or whatever. Like there's some idea of like the Knights of Avalon is supposed to be passing on some idea of values and chivalry and nobility, and that can survive into the modern day. And what's happening is instead, like Peter Cushing's dying out, John Mills is retiring, and that place, that hole is being filled by by like the social climbing, curtain twitching, chest thumping, patriotic, like, why are you wearing a poppy? Like that kind of thing where like you have to wear a poppy for like a month before November 11th, and if you don't wear a poppy, then you could should be taken out in the street and shot in the head. That kind of like mad faux patriotic horseshit that makes me want to vomit blood. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing is what's taking its place, and that's what Pleasence is. So to have him foiled by Brian Glover, who is sort of in his own way kind of that same kind of attitude as Mills has got, right? That he belongs anywhere. He's like comfortable with toffs. He's comfortable on the streets. Like wherever he's from, he's like made his own way, and he's made it by dint of like who he is and his personality. You know what I mean? Like,
but also I think that the difference between Glover and Pleasence, let's say, is that and the similarity between Glover and Mills in terms of character and in terms of class is that Glover knows who he is and where he belongs. You know what I mean? Glover's not trying to build a castle. He's quite happy hanging out in his casino.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the fact that he has a casino or has a strip joint or whatever that is that they're in. He has a theatre, like an East End theatre. Probably a bunch of stuff happens, right? It's probably stripping and casino or whatever. But the fact that he has that is like enough. Like that. I mean, maybe it's not enough. Maybe he has 2 or 3 other strip joints. But like in general, he's not looking to buy a castle. You know what I mean? He's not looking to become nobility. He's happy like where he is. He wouldn't know what to do with himself if he had a castle. The dichotomy I think a lot of us face in terms of our Englishness is both the sort of celebration of the old English, eccentric, or the aristocracy, or the empire, like the glow of the empire, with the reality of the situation, which is, that most toffs are absolutely fucking awful. And what we did with the empire was, unforgivable garbage. But it's also like swirled with like British romanticism that for some reason, outside of maybe the world wars, we've only been in the doldrums in our national consciousness, like since then. Like even though the empire, much like slavery, should hang over England in a negative connotation, it hangs over England even more than like the 1950s do in America. It hangs over England as this like glowing like past that we no longer have. And it's because there's great tales of like daring do, there's great tales of eccentricity, there's like exotic lands, and we imagine whenever you see films that are set in that kind of era, it's always like incredibly like affable people in like linen suits and flappy hats, going to exotic places and being really rather nice to the locals, which of course isn't what we did at all. But that's the image that everyone has of it, coupled with, as you say, coupled with a very kind of like we've really tripled down on the whole pride of the working class thing. Like the Four Yorkshiremen sketch is sort of the prime example of it. It's like, how hard done by can you possibly be? Well, I was much more hard done by than you are. And by being more hard done by than you, that's my badge of honor. And look how fucking hard done by I am and poor I am and whatever. Like it's this weird pride at both ends of the class spectrum that we shouldn't have pride in whatsoever. and yet there it exists. And what's interesting is that this movie both plays into it, like with the John Mills character, like I say, the affable toff who kind of gets on with everybody and is always kind of quick to outwit the idiots who would do him wrong, kind of thing. Coupled with the right-leaning middle classes who are griping for the business class and griping for the upper classes, and covered in pretension and covered in whatever. So it's just this. And it works completely within the movie and within what it's trying to say. But if you actually unpack it, or actually look at the reality of the situation, if there was one, then it would be, I think, a little different. But ultimately, the two examples we see Mills, who is like the gentleman till the end, and we see Cushing say about his son, the guy who would go off to America and then come back and be weirdly enough like a defender of his father's legacy and would be more aligned with Mills despite being from America. He says to the gardener or whatever, who says something to his son about like, one day you'll be a gentleman or whatever, and Cushing says he was born a gentleman. Like he was born a gentleman. We're just showing him the right ways to develop that. But he was born a gentleman. So it's this interesting thing of, breeding versus nurture. So it's nature, nurture, right? But with a kind of class element to it as well. There's a lot to unpack, but it's fascinating and enjoyable. And in the end, no one really defeats Pleasence. Pleasence rides into a lowering portcullis, which I suppose the gardener, whoever it is who's lowering the portcullis, like defeats him, but he's not directly killed by any person's hand, more by his own.
No, you're right. It is
stubbornness.
He's killed because he's an idiot.
Yeah,
because you won't stop, and probably because he doesn't really know how to ride a horse. I guess is also part of that.
But it's weird. It's one of those movies. It's a very rare movie, by the way. A friend of mine found a digital file for it, and that's what we ended up watching. But like a lot of these kind of films that have been knocking about since the 70s and probably have cropped up on like a VHS or a DVD somewhere, but certainly are not widely distributed.
I bet it was on ITV or like Meridian at like 1 a.m.
But the movies like this, the only issue I have with it is that it was difficult to get into because the sound wasn't particularly great. Now that's to do with the version we watched. But like when the sound isn't good, you can't settle. You can't just sit and be like, I'm going to enjoy John Milton. Like it takes you a while to get into what it is you're watching and get into the rhythms that what you're watching because it's not immediately apparent. And so, this is a movie that I would champion, a big shiny Blu-ray off because it would be it would be amazing to be able to have it on the shelf and revisit it with clearer intentions and clearer audio.
Yeah, I do wish I'd seen it on Meridian at like 1 a.m. or something. Like when you used to look at the TV guide for ITV, and at a certain point of the night, like around midnight, you'd have to jump down to like the regional bit and go, well, I'm on Meridian, so what's on Meridian at 1 a.m. or whatever, right? Because it's never the same as what was on the main ITV. And every now and then you get like film, right? And they'd be like, dot, and whatever the mad film was that wasn't on the channel. You had no idea what it was. It's just a title, that's it.
Yeah.
Pleasence is a night in whatever. And that's what, that's how I'd like to have seen it.
Yeah.
Look it up in Halliwell's or whatever and be told, like poorly conceived romp starring Donald Pleasence or whatever sniffy thing Halliwell would say about it, right? But you'd like read between the lines and go, oh, I think I might like this then.
Yeah. There's no. I mean, I certainly understand why it didn't, I don't know, set the world on fire. But there's no reason for it to be this like rarity or hidden gem.
Because it's very odd. It's not a horror film. It's not an action film. It's not a comedy either. Exactly. It's like it's very enjoyable, but it's not a heist. It's not a crime. You know what I mean? It's not. It doesn't fit in anywhere. I mean, where would you even file this? in a video store? Do you know what I mean? Like, under what genre would this go?
Probably under British 70s British action comedy.
Really?
Yeah.
Action comedy.
That's what they would consider it. Yeah.
I mean, I think you'd have to. There's no action comedy. But we're in Blockbuster, right? There's no action comedy section. It's just action or comedy. So where's it going?
No, there are action comedy sections.
Is there?
Yeah, like Beverly Hills Cop or whatever is an action comedy. It's not.
Yeah, but you'd probably find that under action, not comedy.
No, I don't think so. Not necessarily.
Really? In a video store?
It's like
Beverly Hills Cop under action.
It's like Fletch has some action in it, but it's basically a comedy.
But you'd find that under comedy, I would argue.
Yeah, but I think you'd find Beverly Hills Cop because they'd want to file it with all the other Eddie Murphy movies.
No, they wouldn't. No, they'd put it under action.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I'm just saying, I don't think you wouldn't find this under action, right? Because there's no action. You wouldn't find it under comedy because there's no strictly comedy either. I mean, it's very fun and enjoyable. And there's some funny bits in it, but I wouldn't call it a comedy. Nobody went, we made this great comedy. It's called A Dirty Night's Work. I mean, the fact that it's got 8 different titles tells you everything you need to know. No, true. It's directed, by the way, by Kevin Connor, who I recently watched one of his other movies that both Pleasence and Cushing are in. Which is, and I watched it recently. I didn't even know it was by the same guy. But that's the anthology movie From Beyond the Grave, which Cushing plays the cheeky antique shop owner in the wraparound stories, and Pleasence and his daughter Angela Pleasence appear in one of the stories, predominantly in the middle of that. The other claim to fame that Kevin Connor has on this side of the Atlantic is that he made the 80s cult favorite Motel Hell. I don't know that. What's that?
The Motel Hell is a movie all about cannibalistic farmers who run a motel, but are basically kidnapping the people who would use their motel and burying them alive, so that they can make a kind of special meat.
Wow, is it any good?
It's fun and has a sort of. I tell you what's interesting about it is that it does. Motel Hell has a very goofy sense of humor that doesn't feel very American, and it makes sense now that Kevin Connor was involved. Because like if I watched it again, knowing that this was made by the guy who made From Beyond the Grave and A Dirty Night's Work, I'd be like, oh, okay, that makes much more sense. Because he's not particularly interested in any character development whatsoever. His characters are who they are the moment they show up, and they do what they do. It's interesting as well, because when you make an anthology movie is not about the character, it's about the scenario, right? So you go from, here's a scenario, you need to know what the scenario is very quickly. You know, this character will come a cropper, this other character will make a wrong decision. You know, the goblin in the mirror will eat their face, and then that ends, and then it goes on to some other poorly conceived setup, right? And it's interesting that he made that, and he's made a lot of episodic television, because now that I think about like the few films that I've seen of his, they're less interested in character and more interested in just like, this is the scenario, off we go. You know what I mean? Yeah,
which makes sense, because that's why it's fun. That's why it's got that kind of romp thing, I suppose, because like you say, it's not, nobody's growing, nobody's learning. They're just like moving to the next thing.
Yeah. He then does a lot of TV stuff in the 80s and 90s, and then comes back to TV movies. And I've got to believe most of these ended up on like the, what's the Hallmark Channel or whatever, or one of those, because they're all like Annie Claus is coming to town and Honeymoon for One and stuff like that. It's got to be all like those kind of
probably.
I Married Who ? And like A Christmas Kiss 2.
Fair play to our Kev, because
still making movies today. He's got Connemara Days has been announced as soon to be released.
I will now. I wonder if I can have a look. I wonder if any Kevin Connor movies are on like Netflix or whatever. Because now I'm like, I'd give his stuff a go. It's got a very odd sense of humor.
Right. And it's written by Julian Bond, who is most famous for a movie called The Shooting Party, which is equally British and weird, and also wrote a lot of The Saint back in the 60s. Julian Bond, and has written a shed load of TV stuff. But no, so the one thing that I kept coming back to, and I always feel the same way in Holy Grail as well when I see that, but in Holy Grail it works and here it doesn't, is that there's nothing. It's so funny that later on Hollywood would try and make like being a knight or being King Arthur or whatever, like try to make it sexy, because when you actually just put actors in like clunky knight costumes and try and get them to fight, even if the fight is like really well done and really well choreographed, it just looks like people fighting in a rubbish bin. Like it looks like they're wearing a rubbish bin on their head and they're hitting each other with sticks. Like it just looks ridiculous. And like it looks like they're wearing drag with a rubbish bin on their head, hitting each other with pool noodles, is what it looks like.
That's right.
No matter how well you do it, that's what it ends up looking like.
Yeah, which is why that the opening, I guess, works so well, because it has because it has that goofiness about it, and then you realise that they're not trying to make like a medieval, because I thought for one horrible minute I'd have to sit through some like medieval picture of like Donald Pleasence being a fucking evil baron or something, and and it was like it looks like it's filmed in a country house. This is going to be no good. And then to have the ending, the beginning turn around like that by having a character from the modern day just like stroll into the middle of it, it's like that's quite a bold way of opening your movie. In that, if you were in the cinema and you didn't know any better, right? I mean, the poster has like a Mini driving like along, so I guess that would kind of ruin it. But in that way of not knowing what movie you're going to get, which is pretty rare these days, because I didn't know anything about it. Because these days, even if you're like finding something through streaming, you get like a basic synopsis, right?
Yeah.
So that's quite rare that you'd flick on the telly at the beginning of this one and go, I wonder what this is, and then and I had that experience, and that's I suspect part of the reason I liked it so much was, and I also liked that they Steven Seagal'd in Executive Decision Peter Cushing as well. It's like Cushing, Cushing's in this, and 10 seconds later Cushing's dead.
Okay, that's the most random example of where an actor comes into a movie and dies early on that you decided to pick to compare, because you couldn't get two more disparate people than Steven Seagal and Peter Cushing.
But Steven Seagal Executive Decision is like, wait, he's dead. He's fucking dead. Then that's what comes to mind there. If you have a better example, mate, I will gladly hear it and use it more in the future.
Yeah, not off the top of my head because it's late and I've had an average of about 4 hours sleep a night for the last week. So I can't off the top of my head right now.
It was the best choice then.
It was. Yeah, it was. I just, two very different people.
That's true. One compare. Very similar viewing experience. I was full of admiration.
Was this the most successful Pleasence movie of this series?
For me, definitely. Yeah.
In terms of one that we could both agree on, because we've disagreed. Yeah. I would probably still watch Yankee Zephyr before I watch this again, but I would put this. This is now on my list of like Pleasence films to watch again. Like it's on my list of like, oh yeah, that was a good Pleasence film. Don't forget it. Like watch it again.
Yeah, I wish he could have been a bit better in it. I suppose it's not a great Pleasence role, although he is very good. I mean, don't get me wrong, he does a great job. It's just Mills is having all the fun. Right,
oh right, no, yeah. Mills and Glover are having all the fun.
Yeah, and the mother and Mills is Glover's mum.
And
those two are having an absolute blast.
What's hilarious is it's much like Yankee Zephyr. It's another one where they've roped in an extraordinarily bland American actor and gone, well, we have to make. I love the.
It's not bad though.
No, but this is my favorite. This is my favorite thing about it. Is that someone somewhere was like, it's the 70s, it's going to be the 80s soon. It's the American decade is ramping up. American movies are big news. We've got to get an American out of movies. And between Yankee Zephyr and this, you couldn't get two movies that will never play well in America if they try. Like you could put Steven Seagal in both of these movies. It doesn't matter. Their sensibilities are so off the charts, either European or Antipodean in the case of Yang. They're so alien from an American sensibility, either rightly or wrongly, they just are, that putting in like token random soap opera actor American doesn't benefit anybody. It's not like people are going, oh, David Brindley or whatever his name is, David Burney. Oh, I'm going to go see the latest David Burney movie. People in America are watching. People in America are watching.
If you want the bank manager to pull another 20 quid out of his pocket, so you got to be Bernie. We got Bernie. All right, I'll give you another 20 quid for Bernie, but that is your lot.
Like at this time, people in America are seeing the advent of 80s horror, like 70s and 80s horror. They're seeing the likes of Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and Harvey Keitel and Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken and all sorts of people and Meryl Streep or whatever. They're seeing this amazing new wave of American actors come in, and this little British film that couldn't be more British in its sensibility, couldn't be more British in its subject matter, and couldn't be just more bizarrely off the charts British. It was like, well, we've got Bernie, let's put does Bernie work?
Now Bernie out the back, should we stick him in it?
I mean, at least Barbara Hershey had worked with Scorsese. What is Hershey doing in this?
I don't know. I honestly have no idea. I mean, I don't know when she started being famous. Presumably after this.
No. I mean, after this in terms of fame, maybe, but she had been acting in TV since the 60s. And she does Boxcar Bertha before this for Martin Scorsese. So she works with Scorsese like 4 years before this.
She's pretty good. It wasn't much of a part, but she was pretty good at it.
She was great. She was what I thought was amazing was that she was sort of gung ho, considering it's such a like.
Was very like. She wasn't like, oh, I'm trapped in a tower. She was like, she seemed to be what I like too. She seemed to be in on the joke of the movie. Like she found everything that was happening very funny, and do you know what I mean? Like her attitude to like the knights and all that was very wry. There was like a wryness to how she was handling everything. And she was like gung ho and game for it. She's the one that rescues Brian Glover by driving into a greenhouse with a car, which is a very cool moment.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly put Bernie over and the combination of Bernie and Hershey over the combination of Ken Wall and the woman in Yankee Zephyr, who I know has gone on to do stuff as well. She's sort of like she's very Susan Sarandon like, and I can't think of her name right now. I would definitely rather watch Hershey and Bernie, make eyes at each other than the cardboard wall. Leslie Ann Warren was the woman in.
Well, to be fair, though, they didn't even really make eyes at each other, did they? Well, I guess they kind of did, but they didn't really consummate it, did they?
No.
And I like that Pleasant was deeply unpleasant to her, and she just didn't. There wasn't any sense of him being like domineering or cruel. He's just being a prick. Do you know what I mean? Like there wasn't like she wasn't bothered by it. It wasn't like, look, she's being done down. She needs to be rescued from this terrible life where she's treated like shit. It's like it was more that she found the whole thing and him as ridiculous as he did. There was a place for him in England because there was a place in it for her.
Well, she was doing it so she could study the architecture.
No. But I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
That her being at ease in that world and that attitude, like you don't have to. You can beat it. You don't have to join it.
But you're right. Her real fame, per se, came with 1982's The Entity and followed up with The Right Stuff, The Natural, and Hannah and Her Sisters. So you're right. This was not... this was prior to her like run of movies where you're like, oh, it's Barbara Hershey. I mean, I don't know how famous she ever became. Like she was never, like I say, like a Susan Sarandon or whatever, but she did her fair crack of movies.
Splitting Heirs.
Well, what's funny is I've got a feeling that, and I'm just going to look at like after Splitting Heirs. Yeah, after Splitting Heirs, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that Eric Idle killed her run of films because I'm not even kidding. She does all through the 80s. She's doing stuff that you've heard of and that is successful. She's Last Temptation of Christ. She's Beaches. She does Falling Down with Michael Douglas. Then she does Splitting Heirs, and after that, it's just a litany of things you've never heard of. So I'm gonna say that England has not been kind to Hershey because it didn't resurrect. It didn't create her career with this movie.
No,
because this movie didn't go anywhere.
And
when she finally returned to England with Splitting Heirs, who must have thought, like, after Fish Called Wanda, another Python makes a knockabout rom-com in England. This is gonna be off the charts successful.
This is gonna Jamie Lee Curtis me back to the big time.
Yeah, this is gonna Jamie Lee Curtis Hershey right up the joint, and it did none of those things.
Is there anything about Splitting Heirs that is remotely passable? Is it all just dreadful from start to finish?
I'm going to say it's all dreadful from start to finish. I think that right down to Eric Idle wholesale stealing the opening of The Jerk. Because in The Jerk, the joke is, I was born a poor black child, and it's Steve Martin. In Splitting Heirs, the joke is he's raised as an orphan by an Indian family, because obviously in England we have a lot of Indian and Pakistani families. And like on his 30th birthday or whatever, they tell him he's not Indian, and he's like, "What? I'm not Indian?" And it's just like it's like such a, you're watching it being like, "Oh my god, this is actively, like, this is comedy actively making my soul hurt." So yeah, it starts bad, and then, by about the midway point where Eric Idle's script is taking vast shits all over Rick Moranis and Barbara Hershey's career, you're kind of like, oh, like the whole thing is very unpleasant. Also, who convinced Catherine Zeta-Jones that, like, I don't know, snogging Eric Idle when he was like 55 and weirdly saggy was going to be a good career move for her?
People do strange things when it's a big time movie, I guess.
But that's what I'm telling you exactly what happened. Fishful Wonder came out. Cleese was like, "That's it. I'm not writing another movie for a while." I know he was forced into doing the sequel, but like, essentially he wrote it and was kind of one and done for a while because it was such a huge success for him. And he went off to Jamaica and counted his money. And all the other Pythons lined up at film studios with scripts that they had dusted off. Like scripts they couldn't have got made if I don't know, if they had tits in them. Like, I don't know, like scripts they couldn't have got made if they were,
Was Eric the Viking, right? Was that post Wonder, Eric the Viking?
I think Eric the Viking is Terry Jones trying to be Terry Gilliam. It's like seeing Terry Gilliam's success. I don't think Eric the Viking is post Wonder. It might be. When is Fishful Wonder?
88, I want to say.
Yeah, Eric the Viking is after A Fishful Wonder. So yeah, that's Jones being the first one up to the trough. I'm like, well, if Cleese can do it, I can do it.
What about Vikings? Vikings are funny. No. I remember watching the Vikings thinking, "Oh, that was a pleasant movie." And I was watching it again, and it was not at all good.
Yeah, no, it's totally weird. I would love to actually do like an essay on it, actually, about like post Fish Called Wonder Python mistake.
Well, we could do a season. I'm not averse to watching post Wonder barrel scraping.
Yeah, because the American Friends, which was the Palin one, which is it's so mild. It's like if you took Palin at his most mild and then gave him like a splash of beige wash. That's American Friends. Is Palin as like literally the studios, they must have just been like, "Oh, one of these post Python films has got to hit after Fishful Wonder," and they did American Friends, they did Eric the Viking, they did Splitting Heirs, and then on top of everything else, Jones was like, "Oh, none of these films have been successful. How about I get them all in it, and I redo for the 785th time A Wind in the Willows," and they made The Wind in the Willows, or what was called over here Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and that, I mean, the nadir of embarrassing. You'd have to kind of put Mr. Toad's Wild Ride and Splitting Heirs next to each other and be like,
oh, really?
Which is more embarrassing? like on the level of just painful middle-aged comedians who just can't cut it anymore, being given money because one of them, well, no, two of them, if you consider Terry Gilliam as also being successful, because he was all through this time. But he was successful on his own terms. Like he didn't, outside of his very early films, he didn't put a lot of Pythons in movies after that. Brazil is the last one he did it with.
Munchausen?
Oh, Munchausen, I guess. Yeah, but Munchausen was like, once he got Idle in there, was his biggest failure. Like, once you go, what's Idle doing? Let's put... Once you get Idle, they're anything. Unless you have Neil Innes doing the music, anything that Idle has attempted since Python has been just woeful. Just woeful. But he's the richest Python because of Spamalot. Like, it's just unfathomable to me. He stole everybody else's sketches, put music to it. Like, not even particularly good music. Like, yes, there's a couple of really good songs in Spamalot, but that's about it. Everything else is like stolen wholesale, and he's just rolling around in money, probably with Barbara Hershey.
To be fair, he didn't make the mistake, I'm guessing, of marrying 5 people and divorcing them and then owing them all large quantities of cash.
No, he didn't do that. No. And become something of like a mad old bigot. Yeah, he didn't do that either.
So, swings and roundabouts.
Yeah. But I do like the idea. I like the idea of the studio going to John Cleese. So anything else after Fishka Wonder and him being like, nope, I'm going to Jamaica to count money. And then them going to all the other what have you got? And Eric ought to be like, I don't know, Splitting Heirs? I don't know. Who can you put in it? Rick Moranis? Oh, all right then. Have $5 million. Just piss it up a wall. Just piss it right up a wall.
Oh God! And I remember being like, I remember even like being vaguely interested in Splitting Heirs because of the Fishka Wonder thing. Like, it is how people think.
Yeah. And it's unlikely. Like, it's like when Four Weddings came out. You know, there was a whole rash of bumbly, British rom-coms.
Yeah. And then same with Lock, Stock, right? You couldn't
move from Mockney gangsters.
But then when it came out, it was the first one that had been around in ages. Like, there hadn't been like a gangster film, British gangster film, that any kind of business in, like, I don't know, probably since Mona Lisa, I guess, maybe. And that's not really a gangster film either. Probably Long Good Friday. But yeah. So that I guess it's inevitable.
I would happily do like a post Python series, but you would have to hold on to your hat.
Well, I wouldn't mind seeing whatever the fuck, fucking
Wind in the Willows.
The man who killed Don Quixote ended up being.
Oh, I would love to watch that because so this is weird, right? For me, I've watched every single Gilliam movie like the day it came out. Like even the Zero Theorem, I went to see, and then I went to see him speak at the Apple store in the Village, which is where I met him. So even Zero Theorem, I was like down to watch the day it came out. Because they changed Don Quixote from Depp and Rochefort to Adam Driver and Price, who, I can only take in small doses anyway.
Yeah, I did really like him in the Popes one. He was really, really good in the Popes one.
And yeah, but he's never good when he's trying to do like comedy or trying to do like over the top. It never works. He's even and he's not in it very much, but he's even the most annoying thing in Baron Munchausen with his accent and the way that he's trying to do it. Even more annoying than Eric Idle, who is pretty annoying in Munchausen. I love Munchausen, but like Eric Idle stinks up that joint like a sack full of baby pampers.
Like a stinky, like a stinky middle-aged flabby comedian waiting to piss $5 million up a wall.
Exactly. And Adam Driver, I find to be the most.
I don't get it.
Irritatingly bland. This is my example. Like this is my thing in Driver, right? I was watching The Black Klansman, which, for all intents and purposes, is a good movie, and I did enjoy it. But Driver is in there, right? And all through the movie, he's delivering every single line of this, mama, and like looking like vacantly out a window, right? And the main guy in Black Klansman turns around to him and is like, if you're going to pretend to be me, you've got to be like louder and more bombastic and speak with more urgency. There's a whole scene right in the middle of the movie which almost feels like Spike Lee saying to Adam Driver, "Wake up!" Like the whole. There's a scene right in the middle of the movie where the main character turns around to Adam Driver's character and is like, "If you're gonna be me, you're gonna have to be more dynamic, speak up, blah 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 blah." Right? And I thought, oh, okay, so he played the whole first half of the movie because the second half of the movie he's meant to be like more dynamic and loud and whatever. And the second half of the movie after that scene, he played like this. The whole fucking movie was done like this, and he never once raised his voice or opened his eyes or did anything at all. And I'm like, there was just a scene, like Spike Lee literally wrote a scene in the movie where everyone in the audience goes, "Wake up!" to Adam Driver, only for him to literally play the rest of the movie exactly the same way that he'd been playing the film. The man's got all the dynamic range of a bit of felt cloth.
And it wasn't the problem with Don Quixote is on the press tour for it, Gillian went around going, Harvey Weinstein wasn't all bad. Is that where you want to?
No. That's not what he said. That's not what he said. He said what he said was almost worse. What he said was that a lot of actresses benefited from the Harvey Weinstein situation, who are now looking to like complain about him. And I'm like, kind of missing the point there, Tell. But okay.
Yeah, he's definitely gone a bit. We're going to have to watch for it, mate, because I think there is a point. Maybe it's like a combination of fame and age.
Well, there was a period of time where he was going to do Don Quixote with Cleese as Don Quixote and Robin Williams as Sancho Panza, which I would have been all for. And then when Rochefort fell through, there was talk of Michael Palin replacing Rochefort, and I'm like, I am down for a Palin Don Quixote. Yes, please. 100%. Now, say what you like about Depp, again, at this point, a bit of a troubling figure, but at least a dynamic, engaging screen presence, and certainly when they were looking to make the movie originally. So I think there was a part of me that when first of all, it didn't get a wide release over here. If I was going to see it, I would have had to have bought the Blu-ray, and I wasn't ready to kind of do that. Thirdly, everything the way Terry Gilliam's been recently is sort of sad and a little like, all right, can we stop putting cameras on people who have clearly passed their sell-by date? And lastly, the casting kind of put me off. So all those things went together.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that's the same for me, I think.
To make me kind of go, I don't know, I'll come to it when I come to it. However, if this is the time that you and I come to it and give it an honest appraisal, I would be down for that.
Okay, well, let's do that. We doesn't have to be a season necessarily, but I tell you what I am in favour of, because I tell you what I watched as part of my because I had a couple of days off, and one of the things I really like to do when I have a couple of days off is to watch peculiar films from my Amazon queue. Right, things I just put up there for the hell of it. So I watched a disaster film where Lee Majors is flying a plane in space that goes out of control or whatever. It's like a disaster film, but he's in a plane, but he's in space. And God, what else did I watch? Anyway, just a bunch of weird shit. One of the things I watched was Jabberwocky, right? Which I'd never seen.
Oh wow, you've never seen that?
It was all right. No, it was all right. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, parts of it were like, oh, what the fuck is this? And why do you think this was funny or whatever? But it was kind of entertaining and pretty cool. And some of the effects were brilliant. And I did really enjoy it. But so there's a lot of, I think, forgotten Python films that I don't think I've ever seen. And that's The Man Who Killed Don Quixote is one of them.
You know what I'm going to find? You know the Eric Idle? We're not going to watch Splitting Heirs. I mean, we can watch Splitting Heirs if you want to.
No, there's another Eric Idle one.
I'm going to find, right, there's, Eric Idle's been in a whole bunch of duds. But there's one movie that he personally disowns. And weirdly enough, it's not the Burn Hollywood Burn movie that everyone else disowned. He didn't disown that movie. Although, what time in Hollywood was a Joe Esterhaus script where the studio was like, Eric Idle is the lead guy, let's buy that? What? Even that decision, Eric Idle hanging out with cameos with Jackie Chan and Sylvester Stallone and Whoopi Goldberg. I'm like, what? Anyway, maybe we watch Burn Hollywood Burn because
I've never seen Burn Hollywood Burn. I've never seen it.
So mad. It's so mad.
That's why I always want to watch it. Because didn't he disown it as well?
Esterhaus disowned it, and what's funny is it was, I think it was renamed an Alan Smithy film, and the director took his name off it, so it became literally an Alan Smithy film. Like it's an Alan Smithy film directed by Alan Smithy, which, by the way, is no longer the alias. I don't know what the new alias is, but they no longer use the alias Alan Smithy when people take their names off films.
Well, I'd like to, because I'm also like, I do have a soft spot. Can we watch Burn Hollywood Burn?
We can watch Burn Hollywood Burn. Okay, so this is it. So we'll do Don Quixote. Definitely, we'll do Don Quixote at some point. But how would you be interested in like a bad Eric Idle season? So we do Splitting Heirs, we do Burn Hollywood Burn, and then we do. There's a movie, right, which I had on VHS because I went through my mad collect every post Python.
Everything Python's been in. Yeah. Right.
I found a movie in one of those weird like pop-up shops that would show up in the Friary in Guildford that would have We found The Odd Job, the Graham Chapman, David Jason
movie.
Pretty
good. That was all right. Graham Chapman did all right. Yellowbeard and The Odd Job were actually pretty good.
The best line in The Odd Job is still when he's drinking at the bar, having had a few G&Ts, he's like, one more of these and I will have built an entire lemon. That's still my favorite line in it. But so we found that, but we also I found a movie called Missing Pieces, which
I vaguely remember that.
Which is an Eric Idle, Robert Wuhl from Good Morning Vietnam, whatever. He plays like the annoying guy in Good Morning Vietnam. He's in other stuff as well, but Robert Wuhl. He's kind of like a curly-haired American character actor comedian who showed up in a bunch of stuff. Anyway, him and Eric Idle are like mismatched, mentally problematic guys who like go on a road trip after some treasure or whatever and get into some like
I want to see this
nauseating japes. And it's the only movie that whenever asked about it, Eric Idle has like flatly disowned. Yet it's nowhere near as bad as Splitting Heirs. I mean, it's bad, but it's nowhere near as bad as Splitting Heirs.
Okay, yes, I want to do a bad Eric Idle season. Let's do Missing Pieces, Splitting Heirs, and Burn Hollywood Burn.
Okay, and then do The Man Who Killed Don Quixote.
Yeah, okay. Well, I do like a bad.
Is there like a fourth random Eric Idle movie that
there must be one
that I haven't seen? Let's see. I wonder if anyone's going to follow us down this rabbit hole. I don't care, but
I don't either.
1 second. He did do a voice in Absolutely Anything, which was the last Terry Jones movie.
Oh yeah, no, I could do that. We could finish that one, and then we could that could be our bridge to Don Quixote, maybe like to Good Python or something, or like Promising Python. But I wanted to see that because it came out. I was like, I guess that could be something. Then it was like, no, this is really stinky. Don't go anywhere near it.
Did you watch it?
I'm interested.
Did you watch it? It was awful.
Oh, okay. If you've seen it, I don't want to do it.
Okay. It wasn't awful. It was.
No, if you've seen it, I'm not as interested. If we both hadn't seen it, like Don Quixote, I'm for it. But I'd rather see another stinky Eric Idle if there is one.
Okay, so we have an Alan Smithy film, Burn Hollywood Burn. We have Missing Pieces. We have, what was the other one that we were going to do? Splitting Heirs. I don't think there's like another really shitty one. I think that there's Mum and Dad Save the World, but he's only a cameo in that. There was a movie he made called Too Much Sun, where I think he does. Oh no, Too Much Sun might be the really bad one we have to do. Because he plays a like outrageously camp gay stereotype in it. So we might have to watch that because it might be absolutely hideous. I think it's a farce where the whole farce is based on he's gay, and obviously gay, but he keeps like falling about with women. I think it's by Robert Downey Sr. It's by Robert Downey Jr.'s dad. Robert Downey Jr. is in it, and Eric Idle plays like an outrageous gay stereotype in it with a mustache. We may have to watch. That's the other bad one.
I like this, man. I like we've done a Donald Pleasence season on the back of you releasing a concept album about Donald Pleasence, and now we're going to do a bad Eric Idle season We should just call it an Eric Idle season. The bad is like taken right as read, right? If it's an Eric Idle season, it's going to be bad.
No, I want to call it
on the back of we made a joke about Barbara Hershey's career being killed, and that's where we're going. I like these through lines that we're following. I'm all for, mate.
Yeah, I want to do. I'm going to call it the outrageously bad Eric Idle season. That's what I'm going to call it.
I'm all for that, mate.
All right, man. Well, look, it's 11 o'clock, and I have to go walk my dog and give her some medicine. So I'm going to say bon voyage, but incorrectly because it means good trip, and I'm not going anywhere. But I'm going to say au revoir or goodbye or whatever. But thank you ever so much for covering this Donald Pleasence film, which, weirdly, because I went in with no hope whatsoever, turned out to be the one that we both agreed on.
Yeah, I agree. No, I enjoyed it enormously, and I'm very much. So, what are we going to start with next week?
Well, let's do it. The bad Eric Idle season.
Should we do it chronologically?
Yeah, let's see.
Or should we do it we should do it chronologically because we could follow the downward trend, presumably.
Oh well, yeah. Except that I think if we do it chronologically, Too Much Sun is the first one. So it's
I think we should do either
Too Much Sun, Missing Pieces, Splitting Heirs, and Alan Smithy.
Okay, are any of that? Have you seen all of them?
I've seen 3 of them.
Which one haven't you seen?
Too Much Sun.
Okay, well, I feel like we should start with. I feel like we should start with Missing Pieces.
No. Let's go backwards. Let's start with Burn Hollywood Burn. And then go to Splitting Heirs, then go to Missing Pieces, and then go to Too Much Sun.
Yeah, okay. Because I feel like if we want to give up, if we're like, I can't handle any more terrible idols. Do you know what I mean?
No, you have to. Oh, and by the way, do you know? Like this is absolutely true. I'm going to finish on this. As recently, because obviously, like since the advent of Blu-ray and so on, and being a DVD and VHS collector in the past, there's occasionally times where I'm like, I should have at least all the Gilliams on Blu-ray, or all of the Gilliams on like the latest releases, or I should have all the John Carpenters on the latest, or whatever. I've gone kind of through my favorite directors and stuff, and slowly over time kind of collected their stuff on the latest version of it. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that I have an Amazon list, which I've never bought anything off, but I have an Amazon list that is like post-Python movies I don't own anymore, because I used to own them on VHS, but I don't own them on DVD or Blu-ray, where it's like sitting there in my Amazon list being like, I don't need any of these. I don't even like any of these films, but there's still a voice in me that made me make the list. I didn't buy anything off the list, but it made me make the list in the last 5 years.
Are these on there?
No, none. I don't think. I think Too Much Sun I'm going to have to source a digital version of, because it certainly isn't out there unless I go buy a cheap VHS of it somewhere on eBay. Splitting Heirs I have, so I can send that to you. I have a copy of that on it's on one of those.
It could be somewhere, right?
Splitting Heirs I have on one of those like 4 romantic comedies for $5 kind of sets. It's on there. Along with other mistakes that comedians made in the 90s. 4 mistakes that comedians you used to like made in the 90s is what it should be called. But I have that, and then I have, I'll dupe that for you and send that over to you. Burn Hollywood Burn is probably, because it's probably been buried, I'll probably have to find it either on some random streaming channel or get a copy.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
This might be me having to source them all from my friend Chris, who's the magic digital wizard.
Okay, all right. I'll take sourced digital wizardry things, but I'll take a look and I'll see. Maybe Burn Hollywood Burn is somewhere.
Yeah, I mean that would be amazing if it was like tucked in the corner of a streaming. We could. Oh, it's available to rent on Amazon for $2.99 if we wanted.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that'll do. That's fine.
Let's pay some money to see bad. I don't think Missing Pieces is available anywhere. No, it's not available anywhere. But yeah, Missing Pieces. I remember being quite taken aback by just whoever made these decisions. Although I feel like Too Much Sun is going to top it. I really do feel like Too Much. Can you imagine being in Nuns on the Run and then being like, yeah, I'm going to be in a Too Much Sun where I play a flamboyantly gay person. Then I'm going to be in Missing Pieces, a movie that I will later disown. Then I'm going to sing the theme tune to One Foot in the Grave. Then I'm going to cameo in Mum and Dad Saves the World. Then I'm going to do Splitting Heirs, right? Then he does a cameo in a Disney theme ride short film called Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. Then he's a cameo in Casper, the live action.
Although he does have the only good joke in Casper.
Okay.
Which is when he like leans on the wrecking ball by mistake, and he does the proper like fall over, and then a few seconds pass, and the ball comes in. It's actually a really good joke. If you watch it again, it's actually a really good joke.
And then since about 1996, he has been mercilessly just ripping off Python at every stage and cameoing in just some of the most awful dross. Yeah, it's.
Well, I can't wait for our outrageously bad Eric Idle season.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's coming to a podcast near you. If we hadn't, maybe Eric Idle will sink this podcast. Maybe that's what'll happen. Maybe Eric Idle will sink this podcast.
He sank Hershey, and now he's coming for us.
Yeah. And it was your decision, so I can put it on your shoulders. All right, dude, I've got to go, but this has been a thrill. Thank you so much for doing this, and we will talk soon.
That sounds great. Thanks, man. That was brilliant.
Bye now.
Cheers, dude. Bye.
Put on a show and at the end of it, blow them all a kiss. There is magic waiting out in the unknown. There are places where we both should have grown. Grab each and every opportunity. In Hollywood or Italy, Donald Pleasence. We are talking Donald Pleasence. Never say you're busy, never turn down a part, knowing that every single one of them you'll hit right out the park. Never ask what the budget is.